We'll call the meeting to order. It's 9 a.m. It's Monday, the 16th. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach. All members are present except for Councilman Veach, who is a little under the weather this morning, apparently. And several members of the audience, the town are here, also the town manager and the town attorney and the town clerk. So we'll stand for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We ask for your guiding hand to lead us through today's meeting. May we approach our tasks with wisdom, our members with respect, and our conduct create an environment of cooperation and kindness. We ask that your wisdom guide us as we discuss the items on today's agenda, and we thank you for the opportunities to accomplish our work this day. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is the approval of the final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
So moved.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. The next item is public comment. Madam Clerk.
Jennifer Rusk. Following Jennifer will be Carol Newsom.
Good morning, Jennifer Rusk, full-time resident and MRF member.
Morning.
Morning. Morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and town staff. I'm here to give you an update on the Marine Resource Task Force pop-up. We have two new really exciting things that FWC has given us to hand out. It's a marine alphabet coloring book and Florida's animated alphabet poster, which is really popular. So I'm here this morning to give you, once again, a MRF pop-up update. We have surpassed 1 year and have had 100 pop-ups. We have been so lucky to have had over 2,600 volunteer hours given by local organizations and have been a resource of information for thousands of smiling faces. We have also been given over $3,000 from local community foundations to continue our efforts. This has been a work in progress for me and a learning curve. I have made mistakes. One being the first time I set up on the beach, I did not have a DEP permit. After sending pictures of the illegal pop-up to the town, I was contacted by staff and that I must have a DEP permit to continue conducting any business on the beach. I was embarrassed and mortified that I made that mistake. I dove right into reading and educating myself on the state laws. I then applied for the DEP permit. I just received the renewal, and I follow the laws of this permit and take it very seriously. It is not an easy permit to get, and there is a lot of responsibility that comes with it. Rightfully so, the state expects municipalities to uphold the state laws and that the permit holder is held accountable. I agree that the town should continue to uphold these regulations and laws to protect our natural resources and wildlife. I would hope all businesses would agree with this. We are all responsible for keeping our beaches and wildlife healthy, as this is what we all rely on for our businesses and community to thrive. If we are granted a DEP permit, it is our responsibility to honor and follow the laws. It is also the town's responsibility to uphold it. Thank you and have a great day.
Easy on the new equipment, please.
Carol Newsom, and following Carol will be Cindy Johnson.
Do I have this thing?
Sure.
Hi. So I'd like to talk about the flooding in the side streets that are being done on this second phase or first phase. I live on Sterling Ave, which turns into Seminole. Now, in the beginning, when they were doing the work on the boulevard, they did some work starting like at Lazy Way and down some side streets. skipped Sterling and went down Dundee, Lauder Street, Falkner Street, put big, big drains in. Now, if you go down Dundee Street, at the very end is a huge drain that's pumping water into a canal. That canal faces Sterling, my backyard, which Sterling is low, floods all the time. Yesterday, high tide, they don't have the correct valves in like maybe the 3 grates we have. So the valve always is open. So high tide comes up, street's flooded. We need what is called a tide flex check valve. So when it's high tide, the valve shuts, no water comes up. That's one issue. The other issue is we have to pump that water somewhere else. It can't be pumped into the back bay where we are. It's already a low thing. We need big grates, huge grates. We have 3. And like I said, it rains, the street floods. So we're looking for some help. And this isn't the first time this issue's been addressed. I can show you pictures. I've sent pictures. Somebody named Wayne worked here years ago. I was dealing with Wayne. Nothing gets done. So houses there, I mean, if a car drives down, you get a wake, like in the back bay when a boat goes by, right up to your doorstep. It's horrible. I found out that we're in the 4th tier on the side streets. You've got streets like William Street on the 1st, and I'm not saying it doesn't deserve to be done, but William Street is one of the highest points on Fort Myers Beach. They're in the 1st tier. Sterling and Seminole's in the 4th. It makes no sense. Like, they're going all around Seminole and Sterling, doing all these streets, completely skipping. When I addressed that issue, I don't know. I've even had some of those contractors or the engineers that were down on Estero Boulevard, I even had them come down and look when it was raining one day really bad and my house flooded. I took on 12 inches of water. It's a constant thing. So I just would like some help. And really, 4th tier to me sounds ridiculous. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much for coming in. Roger, can you add that to your items for later? I want to talk some more about that.
Cindy Johnson. Following Cindy will be Steve Johnson.
Hi, council and staff. Thank you so much for listening to me today. And I want to back up what Carol says. We live on Seminole Way. Today, if you run your meeting faster than a MRF meeting, at 12:30, it will be high tide. And if you have time to go down our street, we would appreciate you looking. If the street is flooded, don't go through it with your car because it's salt water. Any attention you can give and push us up in line, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm familiar with this situation that you're talking about, not just on your street, but other streets, and I empathize with you.
After,
Mr. Johnson.
and after Steve will be John Heim.
Steve Johnson, Seminole Way resident. I'm here also to support Mrs. Newsom and my wife in this endeavor. Part of the problem is that it's Seminole Way and Sterling are managed by swales, which obviously is a wonderful way to convey water, cleans the water prior to dumping it in the bay. Problem is over time, a lot of these swales have been filled, and the street just doesn't drain. Any type of high tide, especially king tide, the water does come up, all the way up literally to your doorstep. So I'm not sure if it requires stormwater drainage, recutting all the swales, whatever is deemed necessary by the engineers. I think it just really needs attention. It's really a low spot, knowing the island fairly well. As Carol had done her research, we're in phase 4, and I guess we're here today to ask to up our priority. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
John Heim.
Greetings, council.
John, I'm going to ask you to remove your hat, please. Thank you.
Greetings, council. It's been a little while, and I'm glad to be back here. The reason I'm here today, recently a report come out when it comes to our water quality and air quality by some experts. Dr. Paul Cox, who runs a professional institution that centers on cyanobacteria out of Wyoming, has been collaborating with Dr. Parsons and also our water keeper, John Cassani. The reason I walk up to these podiums and speak to you is I believe this information is falling through the cracks when it comes to the general public and then the urgency of it. Their findings have found that when they conducted their studies, now imagine Dr. Parsons has conducted a machine that acts like a human lung. And their testings have found, even during the slow seasons, which has been the last 3 years, so their testing is in 7 months' time from 7 months ago to now. And it is triple the dangerous level for these toxins, not only in the water, but in the air. We're talking about cyanotoxins. We're talking about brevetoxins. And we're also talking about, incredible dangerous things like BMAA. These things cause neurological issues down the road. Brevetoxins, of course, we know from red tide, attack a respiratory system. What I'm telling you all and this crowd is we're in trouble. And if we don't face it head on and start working with these, experts, especially the people in Wyoming as elected officials whose responsibility is not ours to inform the general public of exactly what's in the air and in the water, we're going to have some serious trouble for future generations when it comes to what we're building here, which is 100% tourism. You have to be honest with people. If you're not honest with people, they're going to feel deceived, and they're not going to come back. I asked this council to tremendously look into looking up the brain chemistry labs in Wyoming, working with John Cassani of the Waterkeeper program, and getting with Dr. Parsons. And I'm telling this town of Fort Myers Beach exactly the truth. There is BMA in our water and air. There is brevetoxins through legacy pollutants in our water and air. And there are cyanotoxins, all of them extremely dangerous to our health. Please act. It is desperate time to be truthful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I have signed up.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this morning? Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, Tim.
Tim.
Shadle.
Come on up.
Good morning, council, secretary, attorney, manager. Just a couple things before I give accolades to the council and others. In reference to the affordable workforce housing, it would be nice to know what the council feels is a reasonable price for workforce housing. An efficiency, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom. I happen to own a home, but I do rent actually to town employees. And it would be very nice to know what our council feels is a reasonable fee for those units. And after hearing council or vice mayor suggest that the property that was purchased possibly be looked into for affordable housing, workforce housing, I think that would be a great idea also. And the only other thing I'd like to do is just again, as I do in every email and every time I come in front of the council, we have an amazing council and we have amazing employees. And some aren't here, but I notice in particular, one who's leaving, Chelsea, amazing, Sarah, Chad, Jason. These people do an amazing, amazing job. The work they do, the communication skills that they and you all have. And even, I've got a shout out to Councilman Adderholt on Beach Talk Radio this Saturday. Just fantastic. You were talking like an auctioneer because you get a lot of information out very concisely, very well thought through. And I just really have to give a shout out to all of you. We are very fortunate to have such fantastic people. And even a shout out to Beach Talk Radio, Kim and Ed. It's fantastic that people will take the time to go sit there and talk about issues that are important to the town. And I'd just like to thank everybody. That's it.
Well, thank you, Tim. Flattery will get you everywhere. Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Nope? Okay, we'll move on. The next item, you know, after the town was incorporated and the first council was seated, there was a guy who ran for office that first time, and he was unsuccessful, but not by much. And that was John Mulholland. And to his credit, he immediately went and looked for other areas to serve the town, and it was through his spirit and energy that the Marine Resources Task Force was his brainchild, and that came into being from John's efforts. And so then later on, he, of course, he did run again and was elected and served as our third mayor here on the beach. And John was very concerned about the health of the Back Bay, the Estero Bay. That was his baby, and that's why he formed this Marine Resources Task Force, which has thrived in the years since. And I'm sure John would be very pleased with all the activity that's going on today with the task force that he started. So, with that being said, after John's passing, the town got together and decided to institute the Mulholland Stewardship Award, which every year recognizes an individual who goes up and above and beyond the call of duty to ensure that our environment continues to thrive here on the beach, be that sand or turtles or Back Bay or water, you name it. And so this year we're very pleased to honor this lady who has been active in this organization called Turtle Time, which, by the way, they wear yellow shirts, and there's a ton of them out here today, so it's good to see you all here. And but Cindy Johnson has been with them for many years, and is an unfailing member of the group, and persistent in also in many ways. But to her credit, so we're here to honor Cindy today with the John Mulholland Stewardship Award. So Cindy, if you'd like to come up here, we'll present that to you. I'm going to read this first here. The 2022 Mulholland Stewardship Award presented to Cindy Johnson. Cindy has volunteered for Turtle Time for years, along with helping at the Murph pop-up events. As part of her determined and vocal advocacy for the island's environment, she takes the time to become knowledgeable on subjects she speaks about. Signed by the mayor, the manager, and the vice chair of the Marine Resources Task Force, because as we know, the chair had to recuse himself for this vote. But anyhow, congratulations again on behalf of the town. And so, why don't you hold that? We'll all get behind Cindy here. I'm sure Bill Veach would, sorry to miss this picture, but we'll Photoshop him in somehow. All right. Okay, thank you. Oh, yes. And
And your leaf is up.
yes, we also, people have, who attain that award, among other awards here in the town, receive a leaf to go on the Mulholland tree up there for the mangrove tree. So your leaf is up there, and you can identify it. It's marked with a little tag there, so you can. You come in from time to time, shine it up. It's copper, so you'll have to shine it up once in a while. But But again, congratulations, and thank you for all the work that you do, Cindy, and Steve, and the whole group, for that matter. Thank you all very much. Okay, we'll move on. The next, well, we won't move on. Are there any other local achievements and recognitions anybody wants to talk about? Hearing none, we will move on.
Do we need to vote about allowing Bill to participate before we go further?
I'll have to ask the town attorney that.
He can participate by Zoom just as if he was here,
He can.
as long as he can hear us and participate.
Okay, so, and vote as well, and so forth. Okay. All right, well, if you want to take care of that at some point,
He's on whenever he's ready to show his face.
okay, well, whenever you want to put him on, that's fine with me. If he can participate, might as well put him on. Okay, the next item is the advisory committee reports. And what do you know? Murph is going to give a report today. Steve Johnson, Chairman of the Marine Resources Task Force.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, councilors, and staff. This is apparently our rotation to come in and do our initiative list and prioritization, get your feedback on priority. As you well know, we're an advisory board serving at the will of the town council, and we want to ensure that we are pursuing the initiatives that you hope we work on. I provided you in advance our updated list, and not to belabor each item, I thought I'd maybe go down to those that would require some input from the town council. Many of these are ongoing, and I can just talk about maybe the few that are new. So, as you know, we're currently in the process of the sea turtle ordinance, and as I go down the list here, you can pipe in with any issues you have based on the information I provided you previously. Something new we're working on is, now that we have our budget, is a new MRF pamphlet. This pamphlet will include all aspects of the town and try to incorporate the town municipal properties, Mountain House, Newton Park. The landscape and vegetation management's been ongoing, and that will be coming to the council for your review at a further date. Tree ordinance, as you know, has been brought up. That was kind of carved out of the whole sort of open buffer landscape vegetation management to handle that individually, and I believe that language is being currently written by by town staff, environmental staff. New item here, actually, that we needed to get guidance from you is on the landscape irrigation and water shortage model ordinance. Apparently, there's a model ordinance that's been provided to us from the county, or actually, it's the South Florida Water Management District. Had come out in 2020, and actually we had reviewed everything, and apparently we just didn't bring it to the finish line. So the language was reviewed. I think staff looked at it, but for some reason, it never made it here to the town council to have a look at it to determine whether or not we want to adopt that. And really the essence of it is the model ordinance, as well as the landscape and more so the water shortage aspects of it. Apparently we're the only ones in Lee County that have not adopted it, so I think we got a reminder recently, and that's when it came to our attention that this needs to be looked at. So is that something that the council does want us to move forward with? Okay, perfect. You did get an update on the pop-up tent, so that's obviously ongoing and is a major initiative through the Marine Resource Task Force. Dark Skies is sort of pending. The Carlos Point nesting bird, they did come out and use vegetation herbicides, and we'll be working with the FWC next year to see if we can't find something a little less toxic to work with for the bird nesting areas. The Big Carlos Bridge rubble is still ongoing. I think the counties, we need to just follow up with them. I think they're looking at it from a financial perspective, whether it's was similar in cost to shipping all that rubble away versus potentially making new artificial reefs off of, hopefully, Fort Myers Beach. We don't want to have to go too far. Another new one here is actually a review potentially of the Longboat Key sea turtle ordinance. Apparently has become a bit of their enforcement system. And I'm not sure if it doesn't incorporate all their different their code enforcement systems, but apparently it's a best practice, and we're seeking your approval to look into that a little bit to see if that could could bring some benefits to the town. Sure. Okay, excellent. And then the last, as provided by our town council liaison, is that potentially the water sports ordinance review is coming up, and that's something that's, I think also the mayor had mentioned that in a meeting. That was something that we may potentially be looking at. So that's our list.
Any questions for Steve? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Steve. You're particularly lucid this morning, given the wild weekend that I think I heard you had with your son's wedding and all that. So I commend you for your fluent speech this morning. I would ask you.
I wasn't going to bring it up. But, you know,
It's a bachelor
it's
party,
on the
yeah.
floor.
Very impressive.
Not the man I used to be. But go ahead.
This may be premature, but one of them I don't think is, and I probably didn't procedurally do this right. I probably should have sent this to the council, but I just mentioned to the council, one of our constituents who I think everyone knows, Jan Fleming, referred an article to me about a program that's ongoing out west where they collect cigarette butts and then they recycle them. And I talked to Steve about it and asked him if that would be something he could take a look at. I just wanted to make my colleagues aware this just happened recently. But in conjunction with that, the Florida legislature, both the House and Senate passed a bill that allows municipalities to once again regulate smoking on the beach, which could certainly impact cigarette butts on the beach as well. The governor, I don't think it's been signed yet. I think it's on the governor's desk. So I don't know when that'll happen. It should happen soon if he chooses to sign it. But in that case, then the council is going to have to consider, and I hope we do it in concert with Lee County and other municipalities in the county, as to how we want to handle that. And so I just would just give you a heads up, friendly heads up, because that might be something Murph may want to take a look at and make a recommendation to the council if and when that bill gets signed into law, because I think it'll be a pretty interesting discussion here on the island. So just food for thought, and also, again, Jan Fleming had a very interesting idea, a program that's, again, they collect the cigarette butts and then they literally recycle them, and I think they make various deck furniture and so forth from it, and it just helps draw attention to the challenge of litter and cigarette butts as they proliferate around our area. So that's all I've got, Steve. I think you and I talked about it, but I want to just bring up that other issue with the Florida legislature as well as something down the road. I would encourage maybe Murph to start thinking about a little bit and maybe discuss.
Sure, as mentioned, Counselor, we serve at the will of the council. We'd like, as a research arm, really, we'll definitely take a look at that. It looks very like a great one, really, and it's one of the most populous items found during all these beach cleanups is cigarette butts. So we will look into that. Thank you. And actually, just prior to leaving, we had also provided you an updated recommendation on the sea turtle ordinance. I thought I would just touch on that briefly. As you know, we had previously provided a recommendation for the issue of 15% window tint in the current sea turtle ordinance. And as background, we brought that up at our May 11th Marine Resource Task Force meeting and discussed that somewhat at length. And there remain some obvious challenges to compliance with the sea turtle ordinance. Collectively, there are current tools available to the town to meet compliance with the ordinance, and these have essentially proven unsuccessful over the past 33 years, as the mayor had mentioned in a previous council meeting. Whereas education is important, I think we're all knowledgeable that with the transient nature of the island, it continues to result in noncompliance. The behavior of modifying human vacation behavior is a challenge, I think, and the town really needs to adopt maybe more tools that maybe accommodate this behavior a little bit more than to aid in compliance. In addition, even with 1 or 2 nights per week of code enforcement, it still results in really a maximum of only 14 to 29% of coverage each week. So there's 5 other days, 5 to 6 other days per week. That there really isn't any enforcement. Whereas 45% tint does require additional shielding, 15% tint does not. In a recent visit to the Pink Shell, we had an opportunity to talk to their manager, and he recognized that that this turtle compliance and lighting compliance is caused stress over time. Stress with the property and the guests, stress with the property and the town, stress with the property and the community, and other organizations. So they've moved forward willingly to change theirs to 15% tint for the property and hopefully become stress-free. Since the last meeting also, I think the council as well as some of the MRF members have never viewed what the firsthand experience was looking through the glass. And for the most part, everybody that did go out, and we went to multiple properties, but it was a real eye-opener. And based on this personal experience, the Marine Research Task Force has decided to amend the recommendation and really rescind that previous recommendation for a one-year moratorium. And we wanted to provide that to you today. In addition, as we looked at the factual, we would consider factual product quotations, so the hard copies that we received from the window manufacturers, or I should say the suppliers, is that there was a -2 to a +9% pricing range when comparing 15% tint to 45% tint. So I know that was a substantial argument. And in addition, it's just a reminder that our current ordinance was codified in 2020. So this ordinance has been in effect for 2 full years. And it only applies to new construction and replacement glass, and as a means to work with property owners. The recommendation is simply to follow the normal variance process that's open to all municipal codes when dealing with hardships and problems. So again, that's on a property by property, case by case situation. So the unanimous recommendation, specifically from the Marine Resource Task Force, is to continue, again, as it was before, for the town to continue to list more resources to help with the enforcement and to mitigate the light. In addition, to continue the current 15% tint requirement for land development orders involving replacement only of existing windows as well as new construction. Again, we recognize that specifically with new construction, it's just not stopping anybody from building on this beach. I can assure you, I think you can tell by the amount of building that is going on, that it's not scaring anybody away. And as far as we know from the Marine Resource Task Force, that issue has never come up in the last 2 years. And again, property owners managing current projects or facing other hardships can elect to pursue a variance from the ordinance, as is the case with all municipal ordinance. And in the end, to please continue to enforce the Sea Turtle Ordinance that specifies that no direct, indirect, or cumulative lighting can be seen from the beach, and issue citations for those property managers that are in non-compliance. It remains imperative that since the vast majority of installed glass remains with tint values of 45% or higher, so just pure glass. So even though this would remain in the ordinance, certainly it's still going to take a generation to actually affect a complete change on the beach. And what the Marine Resource Task Force would like is to prevent this council to more or less kick the can down the road. I think you all recognize that the beach, the natural resources here on the beach are the town jewels, and encroachment, really allowing encroachment on the beach is not only potentially reckless, but also, I think, financially irresponsible for the homeowners on the beach and the rest of the community as far as safeguarding and providing stewardship for the beach and the natural resources. So that's all we have for today. I certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
One additional question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
Steve,
one more, Steve.
while you're up, and this will be germane to the conversation we'll have later today, did the Marine Resource Task, I think I speak for my colleagues, I think everyone's in agreement, the town needs to move and evolve from an education piece to a much more aggressive enforcement piece on this issue. Did the Marine Task Force come up with any specific recommendations on the enforcement side in terms of staffing, approach, fines, et cetera? Anything specific or concrete that we can do to change and formalize a much more aggressive enforcement strategy?
No, I think in the past, what we determined based on the information we collected is that, you know, the normal enforcement process is fine where you can notify, obviously warn ahead of time, but that next step wasn't being taken, which is if there's a repeat offender to actually fine that homeowner. I think last year, I think you can count the amount of actual fines that were issued, you can count on one hand, and that's outside of disorientations. So I think the perspective of the town is that they will only fine if there's a disorientation, and as we well know, that's well past the fact. One disorientation and can potentially be 100, you know, dead sea turtles. So basically, be more proactive and try to stop the light prior to a disorientation. So actually, just take that step and actually fine people, because I think in your own words, Counselor, you had said that when there is a fine issued, it gets everybody's attention, and certainly it can be punitive if you're a repeat offender.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, you know, there was one thing I forgot to say, Cindy, when you got your award, was that the Johnsons were neighbors of the Mulhollands, and they were very good friends with Nancy Mulholland. I believe you came in after John had passed, am I correct? Yeah, well after that. But you did get to enjoy Nancy for all those years, and so, but anyhow, I did forget to mention that. Okay, we'll move on. The next item is the approval of the minutes, the May 5th Town Council meeting and the May 2nd Town Council meeting and the May 5th Management and Planning session. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
believe Councilor Veach had some comments about the minutes.
Good morning. If it's about the turtle ordinance, can you hold off, pardon me?
Minutes.
Roger said the minutes.
Oh, the minutes. Okay, the minutes. I'm sorry.
I don't think he's hearing.
Bill, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go right ahead with your comments about the minutes. Good morning, by the way.
Okay. I had two edits to the minutes. The
Okay.
first one was the on page 8 of the minutes from May 2nd. I just felt it was probably useful to clarify that with an omission. It's when Vice Mayor Hossafras asked Councilman Adderholt after his motion if the motion was intended to change the ordinance or the motion was intended to bring it back for consideration. And Councilman Adderholt affirmed that it was to bring it back for consideration. That was omitted. I think it's an important part for the public record.
Okay. Was there anything else?
And the second one is just a clerical thing on the first page of the M&P from May 5th. The last two lines are essentially repeated in the first two lines of the next page. The first two lines missed a couple things. The second two lines are more complete. So I think it was someone who cut and paste but didn't do the cut.
Okay.
I'll move to approve both sets of minutes with the amendments as suggested by Counselor Veach.
There's also one other clerical or
my
spelling error.
apologies.
No, page 6, they referred to Councilor Adderholt as Vice Mayor Adderholt. No, just, maybe got promoted and I didn't know.
I didn't take offense.
No, I just,
I'll amend my motion to include that correction.
How did it look in print? All right? Did it look good? Okay. If there are no other, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next, we'll move on to the consent agenda. There are two items. One for a appointment to the advisory board. That's to appoint Karen Slomsky to the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. And the other is Resolution 22-20, accepting donations from the Fort Myers Beach Community Foundation, Kiwanis Club, and Friends of Bay Oaks, and directing the town manager to appropriate the donations to be used for Mountain House Summer Camp scholarships and Bay Oaks teen and youth programs, including summer camp scholarships. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Is Karen Slomsky here? No, okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda is passed. We'll move into the public hearings, and the first is ordinance 22-1 11, the sea turtle conservation. This is the first reading and public hearing. An ordinance of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending Article 5 of Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Fort Myers Beach entitled Sea Turtle Conservation, providing for severability, codification, scrivener's errors, conflicts of law, and effective date. This is the first public hearing, and the second one would be on June 2nd, 2022 at 9 a.m. So we'll open up the hearing. Anybody wish to comment before we move on to
You ask,
the public?
yeah, there's lots of people.
No, I'm asking you all first before we go into the, okay, we'll move on to the public. Madam Clerk, do you have a list going, or?
I do have a list. Eve Haverfield will be followed by James Reeder.
Good morning. Cindy, I'm so proud of you.
Morning.
Eve Haverfield with Turtle Time. Just as an FYI, we have 11 nests on Fort Myers Beach as of this morning. Which is okay. We want to be, I mean, last year we had 10 at this time, but in 2020, we had 17 at this time, so we might catch up. So I've been monitoring sea turtle activity on Fort Myers Beach for as the number's been thrown around, 33 years. And in that time, I've seen this community transform into a wonderful and more environmentally responsible place. There was a time when heavy wooden cabanas lined the beach. People would camp out there on the beach, trash it. Turtles were trapped under the beach furniture, and countless numbers of hatchlings were crushed on Estero Boulevard. Change is never easy. Science and good stewardship prevailed, and the community benefited economically, and sea turtles benefited as well. The 15% tint is a change from the status quo. Countless numbers of hatchlings were crushed on Estero Boulevard. Why am I hearing myself? Change is never easy. Science and good stewardship prevailed, and the community benefited economically, and sea turtles benefited as well.
That's the good Lord himself.
The 15% tint is a change from the status quo. Numbers of hatchlings were crushed on Estero Boulevard. I'm not hearing myself. Interrupt myself? Change is never easy.
We're going to call a recess for a couple of minutes. Is it done?
I'm not.
No, I know you're not. Okay, it seems to have corrected itself. Okay, Eve, continue.
Where did community benefited commercially or economically? Is that where I stopped?
Yes.
Okay, the community benefited economically, and sea turtles benefited as well. The 15% tint is a change from the status quo. It is best available technology that benefits us all. It provides privacy, it saves energy, it protects the interior of condos, it protects furniture, and it makes compliance a lot easier for residents and visitors. The Pink Shell Resort has taken advantage of a Sea Turtle Conservancy grant, and they're installing 15% tint. It has not created the darkness inside the units that people so feared. It does an excellent job of preventing hatchlings from confusing artificial light from the natural seaward horizon light that guides them to the Gulf. So why is this important? Why are sea turtles important? For those who don't know, sea turtles have a vital role in maintaining the health of the oceans that we humans depend upon. Each species has a different function. While all sea turtles eat jellyfish, a single leatherback eats over 400 pounds of jellyfish each day. And fishermen, you might want to listen up. Jellyfish eat fish eggs and fish larvae. Where leatherbacks have disappeared, so has the fishing industry because of the overabundance of jellyfish. Greens and hawksbills keep seagrass beds and coral reefs healthy for fish to lay their eggs. Loggerheads keep the ocean floor sediment loose so fish can hide in it and lay their eggs. Because only 1 to 4 out of 1,000 hatchlings survive to adulthood, we need to make sure that they all reach the Gulf quickly after hatching. I urge the council to follow the science in making your decision about the 15% tint. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. Next.
James Reeder?
Good morning. So Erin and I, she didn't know to sign in,
That's fine.
so can she speak or fill in for me, or how should we do it?
Whichever one of you would like to speak.
You.
Hi, I apologize for the informality. I'm not savvy with town city meetings.
That's all right.
My name is Erin Koss. I'm with PGT Industries. I also represent a member as FGIA.
Excuse me, who are you with again?
PGT Industries.
Oh, the
We're just
glass manufacturer.
Yes, correct. I think Jen was supposed to be here today. She's ill, so I'm going to try to speak as best as I can on her behalf. We're just here to present some technical information for you guys. We have samples, and people have discussed about seeing the new 15% in homes today and not being as dark. I don't have anything formal, I'm sorry. So we have worked with Longboat Key and others. I believe Longboat Key Marine Turtle Ordinance was brought up before as kind of the quality, the standard to follow. They are currently doing the 45% as well. FGIA, Fenestration Glazing Industry Alliance, is working with the FWC, the Florida Wildlife Commission right now, to work on studies to see if which percentage is the correct one. 15% really wasn't tested thoroughly, so we're undergoing a lot of testing this summer to see if 15% is a good number or if it's some other number in between. So 15% is quite conservative. We don't have an opinion of whether you should pursue that one or not. Just know that it is quite conservative and aggressive with no real proven studies today. Boy.
Do you manufacture the 15?
I work in code compliance for the manufacturers that do build them, so we can provide them. One thing that was brought to our knowledge is that we heard that some people are putting window tint on after the fact to hit this new 15% requirement. And in some cases, that can void your manufacturing warranty, and it also creates some heat stress cracks within the glass itself. So putting window tint on something that's already in place may or may not be a good idea. So.
Since you brought that up, just a quick question. So with window tinting and then tinting that is in the glass, what is the difference as far as, so if I have a 50% already tinted glass and I add the percent to 15 or 30% to bring it down,
Yep.
Is it the same effect as having it in the glass?
It isn't. It isn't. So obviously it's going to bring down the less visible light, right? So whatever your tint, you have at 50% now, and then you bring down to 15%. So it's actually going to be less than 15% because of the 50% that you have for your glass already. But it depends on your glass makeup. So if you have already like 1/8 inch annealed glass that's already in your window right now, typically when we put a dark tint on something, we will heat strengthen it, we will temper it, we'll make it 3/16 glass, something to make it stronger to withhold that thermal stress that it's going to hit because now it's absorbing a lot of heat. So if you go ahead and put that tint on there, while it brings that visible transmittance down, it could make your glass extremely hot, and then eventually it could lead to stress cracking issues. Could.
Okay.
Just curious, Mr. Mayor, did you say you brought samples?
Yeah, I have a few samples back here. So if I may.
We've done
Kind of hard
this.
to see if you don't have like light behind it. Sorry.
Could you stand by the mic and kind of hold that up? I don't want you to get hurt.
Yeah.
This is impact glass, so it's laminated, so.
But our walls aren't.
I apologize. I was like, ugh. So this is a laminate piece of glass. It's not insulated, but this is impact glass that will meet the 45 today. It's got gray tint on it, and it has a low E that you will need to hit the solar heat gain for your energy requirements. So while 45% is the goal, in reality, this glass comes out to be 33%. Because glass is not like window film where you can have exactly 15% or 18%. It depends on the thickness of the glass and any other low E coatings that may go into it. So this is the closest representation we have for 45%. I will try not to hit anything. This is the representation that we have in reality that will meet the 15% that you guys are enacting today. It's actually 9%, like I said, because the low E, this has got gray light too, which is a really dark piece of gray. So we can't actually hit 15 on the mark all the time. It's unrealistic to meet. So this is a 9% example. So just what it looks like. It is a significant change.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next,
Bill Altoff?
Good morning, Mayor and council members.
morning.
Brought some data with me.
We'll turn it on shortly.
I think I know what Custer feels like. But the council voted at the last meeting on 5-2 to end the .15 window tint and rewrite the ordinance to reflect the state guideline of .45 by a vote of 3-2. The problem that we're all trying to correct is the total turtle disorientations. So when I take a look at a problem, I try to take a look at the data and then compare it to other areas for some relative analysis. The beach property owners have been compliant with the lighting restrictions to prevent turtle hatchling disorientations. Continuing education with some enforcement is all that is needed. The town's ordinance of .15 is not common nor shared across the many counties across the Florida coast. Our town reported disorientations of only 6 turtles last year. That was 6 turtles out of 2,300 nestings. That does not require additional tinting. The trend, as reported by the FWC website, is declining since 2019. In 2018, the town had 9 disorientations, in 19, 13, in 20, 10, and 21, 6. Lee County over that same period had 48, 85, 66, and 66 again. Both are declining trends. The same declining trends, but with different glass tinting requirements in each area. The vast majority of the turtles nesting all occur on the East Coast. The 2 largest sites are Brevard County and Palm Beach counties. Note the 2 largest nesting areas by count in the state enforce the .45 transmittance. On the west side of the state, Lee County and Sarasota County are the 2 largest nesting areas, accounting for only 1.75% of all nests statewide for both the loggerhead and green turtles. No preventable disorientations is the goal, and it's shared by everybody. The percent of disorientations in Brevard County is 0.5% and 1.28 in Palm Beach County. Sarasota County, which has 3 times more nests than Lee County, reported 199, where that is 2.7% disorientations. Lee County had 2.87. The counties with the largest numbers of nests on the East Coast have lower disorientation rates than the 2 counties on the West Coast. But I can see no straight line or direct correlation between the strength of the tint and the disorientations. The state of Florida implemented the statutes to establish guidelines that control beachfront lighting to protect the hatchlings. And .45 is utilized the most across the coastal counties. Fort Myers Beach should abide by these requirements, and as the council approved during the last meeting on 5-2, should proceed with that. Just a little bit more?
Yeah, just wrap it up.
All right. Should light infractions occur and after proper warnings, we should have fines based on the science, not the human eye. Light infractions must be measured with a calibrated instrument to eliminate subjectivity and personal bias. We have 54 owners in our condominium. 12 are claiming residents of the town. They play golf, they play cards, they socialize, they talk. These are voters who can express their concurrence or displeasure at the voting booth based on your decision on this matter. Owners pay taxes based on the value of the beachfront property. We all want to protect the turtles that nest along our beach. The data collected by FWC does not support additional tinting as suggested by the various environmental groups. Please provide the taxpayer with equal footing as these groups. Please maintain the direction that you started with on 5-2.
Bill, who are you with? I didn't get it.
Shamron Beach Condominiums.
Shamron. Okay, good enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Madam Clerk.
Dave Vicelli? Vicelli? Thank you.
Good morning, Town Council and staff. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to come before you and just give a brief opinion of where I think this turtle glass should be. Through the past years, I've personally remodeled a few condos, adhering to the rule of 45% glass. We also have other owners in our building, I'm at Sunset 6400, who are putting off installing the glass until this ordinance is sorted out. It worries me that we are not allowing our owners to improve their safety and the safety of their property because of the uncertainty of what's going on here. Some owners plain out told me they will not upgrade to 15% if forced to go with that ordinance. So, as Bill had said, we are following the state statutes. I think that with the data that actually Bill has shown everyone, it's of no benefit to go to 15%. And just want to be a matter of record that I believe that we should amend the ordinance and return to the 45% glass. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Mary Rose Spalletta.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm Mary Rose Spalletta. I stand before you today. I don't know that I can call myself a long-term beach resident. I don't know when that kicks in, but I will tell you that I'm aiming for that. So in addition to being a beach resident, I'm active in several organizations here on the beach, some of which are service and some of which are recreational. But I'd like to speak with you as a member, an active member of Turtle Time and an active member of the Marine Resources Task Force. And I am speaking, of course, to the changes to the new Sea Turtle Ordinance. I'd like to begin by trying to impress upon you, first of all, how important we are as far as sea turtle conservation in the world. I'm not talking just in Florida. I'm talking in the world. There are two major loggerhead sea turtle populations. One of them is on the eastern hemisphere, and we're on the western. The eastern hemisphere was centered in Oman, and their numbers have plummeted, absolutely plummeted. They're not even putting out half the number of hatchlings that they used to put out because of all the turmoil. Whoops.
Yeah, Mary.
Oh, okay.
I know you're Italian. It's hard to talk without your hands. But all right.
So I'm hoping you're understanding me in that we here in Florida are responsible for churning out the new sea turtles to replace all of the ones who get killed and die. If you think about Florida, the Sandy Peninsula of Florida, the entire Sandy Peninsula of Florida is potential sea turtle nesting. We are responsible for repopulating the sea turtle population, and they are responsible for a major part of the ecosystem for our oceans, which of course we are very, very interested in. I want to speak about the reference to lights and to furniture. As far as lighting goes, if you look at the skeleton of a sea turtle, you will see that their eye orbits are massive in comparison to ours or any other mammal, and that's because they are so sensitive to light. When we talk about the percentage of light that comes out of the condominium, it can make a difference. If a sea turtle emerges from the Gulf, comes up on the beach, and is faced with a glaring sea light, she will turn around and we lose that nest. A potential 100, conservatively, a potential 100 hatchlings. Will she come in somewhere else? Maybe, but probably not if we have a number of violations on the beach. We need compliance. We need to have no lights. I'm going to go way over here because I've just begun. So sorry. Furniture. I'm sorry. I'll leave if you like.
No.
I have to tell you.
Just don't go way over.
Okay. When it comes to furniture, you might call it one disorientation, but a sea turtle coming up and getting stuck under a piece of furniture has no reverse. These are primitive animals. They've been around for 100 million years. We have the responsibility for keeping them alive. On the Marine Resource Task Force, we have researched all of the complaints we have heard, all the objections we have heard, and we've decided that it is time for us to stand up and accept the responsibility and not just enjoy the privilege of living here on the beach. We have a responsibility to maintain lights that are not offensive and do not repel animals. I have a lot more that I could say, but I would just like to say that darkness at night is wildlife's delight. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mary Rose.
This is Cindy Johnson.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Thank you for your service to the town.
Okay, Cindy Johnson.
Our new recipient.
Okay, Mulholland Award winner, so hopefully I'm speaking from a high platform now. Also, resident, I am a voter too, like many Turtle Time volunteers. So don't forget that. And I am a Turtle Time volunteer, and I am an overly committed Turtle Time volunteer. I am responsible for the reason that we only have 6 disorientations, because I go out just about every night, and when the nests are hatching, and I knock on doors and ask people to turn their lights off. I know how hard it is to enforce lighting on the beach. You can go past, I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, we had maybe 12 nests at one beach access where the one small little house would have their blinds open every night. And every night, we'd take our dogs at dusk and walk past that house, and I'd remind the people to turn off their lights. And sometimes I'd go back, and they'd have their blinds open again, and I'd knock on the door and ask them to do it again. I think we were successful for all that but one of those nests, one nest disoriented out of the 10 or 12 that were there. And that's because I went out at 9:30 instead of 8:45 and didn't get the job done. So I know the town knows, I know Chad knows. You can go buy a house, you can go buy a condo. The condo can go check their own lights, but a half hour later, someone's gonna come home and they're gonna open up their blinds and turn on the lights, and it's only that one light that's gonna cause that disorientation. I don't know what, all the Turtle Time success rate of snuffing lights at night, I don't know what our success rate is, but I know we have kept the disorientation number down. And a disorientation number has nothing to do with a disorientation rate. We don't have that many nests on our beach. Last year is no number to hold up to anything, because we had so many nests that didn't develop because of the tropical storms that went by. So it's hard to pick information off the internet and try and apply that to anything. So a couple quick things. Longboat Keys, first of all, if we go around the state, there's only very few municipalities have updated to the model ordinance yet. So if you dig a little deeper and you go look at that ordinance from that city, you'll find that that ordinance has not been updated. They still have bug lights listed in their ordinance. So at the end of 2020 was when can I continue a little bit? The model ordinance came out. So we don't have a lot of updated model ordinances around the state. So of course they still have 45 tint in them. The FWC has recommended 15 tint for a long time because interior lighting is such an issue. And again, I went out again and provided you with some photos from this weekend. It's not even summer vacation time yet. And that's when those lights are gonna be on even more lights than I even sent you. It's very difficult for condos to police themselves. I can go out anytime and go get you condo lights with lines drawn open, or just partial. That's all it takes. what else did he say? Well, what I say, light pollution on our beach leads to habitat loss. If some of these condos say they never have any turtle nests in front of their condos, they might want to start thinking about it being too bright. And when the beach renourishment comes through, they might want to think that they don't have suitable nesting habitat there. But every beach, everywhere in Florida, is a place that a turtle is allowed to nest according to the Endangered Species Act. It's all protected. And council, it's your job to make sure it's protected. It's not Turtle Time's job. We're just out there providing information and staking nests and watching those nests for 60 days and watching those hatchlings go the wrong direction, staying out there till 10:30 in the morning trying to find 10 out of 100 to maybe release. And after they've been crawling around all that time, how are they gonna do right when they finally get to the ocean, to the Gulf? Jim likes to call it the ocean. Longboat Key left their ordinance at 45 tint, and it wasn't because it was too dark. They left it there right now because they found the glass was too expensive. So their intention is to go to 15% tint when they find that the glass is cheaper. I also talked to Chris Kopp from Longboat Key, and he said there are window tint manufacturers, aftermarket window tint manufacturers, such as 3M, that do warranty the windows after you put the tint on. So if the glass was to crack after you put the post-market tint on, you would be warranted and they would pay for new glass for you. So all these things it's a conundrum, but you see that this can't be enforced. I know from all the hours I've spent on the beach the last several years that it's really difficult for property owners to keep their blinds shut. So I think that is about it. Oh, also Broward County, I have to mention this. Broward County, while this is a large county and it's a county that's been brought up several times by the condo owners, and I don't want to say they're just condo owners, but they have, for instance, like Chad puts out every year what the instruction is, how to prevent disorientations. Broward County has a notice that has gone out at the beginning of this year to use 15 tint. So just because it's not in their ordinance doesn't mean that they're not out there trying to get people to do it. That's the new technology to use. That's the best way to do it from property owners that have 15 tint in that I have spoken to. They're thrilled. It's such a relief to them to not have to mess with this anymore, and they can just go about enjoying their life. So hopefully, if you have any questions, or if anyone out in the audience has any questions or wants to talk to me or wants to go on the beach with me at night, I'm more than happy to do that. 630-484-1231. Cindy Johnson, thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
That's all I have signed up.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm Jim Ryder with Jeld-Wen Windows and Doors. I gave up my spot to Aaron, but thank you for giving me the chance. So forgive me, I brought into this conversation Friday. I'm in the field, I'm in sales, been with Jeld-Wen for 17 years, supporting the community and teaching everybody about the Turtle Code compliance. In fact, one of my slides has the sea turtle and teaching everybody the proper code compliances, which has been the 0.45. So Steve Strawn, who would have liked to have been here, who's our code compliance manager, he did text me and just wanted me to mention that there is ongoing testing. And so to me, in my mind, I'm hearing what everybody has to say, but there's not enough data, there's not enough testing, there's not enough science yet to arbitrarily and throw out all these opinions that 0.15 is the way to go. So Jeld-Wen, PGT, we are totally supporting the Florida Wildlife Commission to do more testing so that there's real science and data behind it. That's all I've got. Any questions?
No?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, yes, ma'am. You can go that one right there if you like. Save you a few steps.
I hadn't planned to talk, so I hope I will do this correctly. I'm Jennifer Manning. We have a condo on the beach. We were fortunate, my husband and I were fortunate enough last year to see a turtle nest hatch. And it didn't go as well as what we would have hoped because all of the turtles, when they came out, went behind us. And we quickly called Eve, and Eve was guiding us on what to do. We were fortunate we had a bucket with us that we were, as quickly as possible, putting these in to the bucket, and then we were taking them down and letting them go down by the water. After this was over, we were so puzzled as to what had happened, and Eve says, "Look around you." She guided us. She said, "Look around you. What's behind where you were standing? What are the circumstances around the nest?" And as we look behind us, I have a picture, and that's why I'm not sure if it's appropriate if I could show it to you. As we look behind us, there was a huge house that had just been constructed, and they had the amber lights at the base, but up above them, these huge showcase windows were fully lit. We have to assume, and probably correctly, that this is what disoriented those hatchlings. So I can show this to you if I'm allowed to. I think it's very telling, very telling. It's not real clear, but it's very telling. This is what the hatchlings saw when they came out. That's really all I have. I just wanted to
I
mention.
appreciate that firsthand recollection of what happens. And that's obviously an enforcement issue right there. Okay, is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section here and bring it back to council. Any discussion here? Lady, gentlemen? Yes, sir?
I'm going to just say a couple things. Again, as folks know, I'm blessed to live on the beach, and I'll say it 100 times that I feel like we have a not only responsibility but an obligation to live in concert with the marine life. And so what I wrestle with is, first of all, let me just say, as this particular councilman, and I think others would agree, I'm not in denial that there's a problem. I mean, I've seen the pictures. I walk along the beach. I'm running the beach, swim, bike. We're out there all the time. It's a problem, and I've been with Cindy and Steve to do the digging up the nests and let them go later at night. I've seen them disoriented. It's real. It's a problem, and we need to address it. So I'm not in denial. I'm not even going to go there because it's real. And again, as somebody who lives on the beach, I think we have an obligation to be respectful of the marine life. So set that aside for a second. What I wrestle with is, and we've talked about this before, is that there are a lot of people who live on the beach who do share that perspective and comply. And we purchase shades that are all light blocking. We turn our lights off even though we have the shades down. We set a timer. I think Roger said the other day, I mean, it's not just government's responsibility to enforce, it's everybody's responsibility. Certainly shouldn't all fall on turtle time. So I've put up signs throughout our building and all the common areas and the elevators. My wife and I went out last Saturday, looked at our building, saw an obvious violation, one that could clearly disorient. Went up and knocked on the door. They were very gracious and turned the lights off. But I think, again, as someone who's used to condo living and condo culture, we're missing a step before we have a punitive measure that affects every single person who lives on the beach because of a few folks misdeeds. And I have a problem with that. I think we need to be much more aggressive on the enforcement front. It's been very kind for the last few years to do education and warnings, but I think we're at the point where we need to issue fines, and not just for disorientations, but for violations. And there are bold violations on the beach. It's evident. I mean, no, I'm not in denial about that. But I think we need to take that step, because I could just tell you when our building got a warning last year, there was conversation throughout the building, the condo board, everybody was engaged, trying to figure out what the unit was, how to be more responsive. It gets a buzz going. But I can tell you, if there was a fine, it would have been even more dramatic. And I think we need to go after those folks who are not being respectful of the marine life. I know it's a challenge for those folks who rent their units. That's why I think what Pink Shell did is wonderful. They have a lot of turnover. It's hard to educate every single person who comes in there. And so what they did is great for Pink Shell, and God bless them for doing it. And I think if you live in a unit and that has a preponderance of rentals, I'm not against the 15%. I think that might be a great solution for that particular unit. But there are a lot of people who live year-round on the beach. There are a lot of people who live in their condos and don't rent them. And this 15% solution is a 365-day-a-year solution that you have to live with. It's not just a 6-month solution during turtle time. And there is a solution, and it's to properly close your blinds or your shades and comply and care. And so that's what I would advocate, and I would advocate us enforcing much more aggressively, so Turtle Time doesn't have to do what Cindy so dutifully has done for years, and all of our colleagues at Turtle Time. It should not be their responsibility. It should be all of our responsibility. And so I would be willing to make a concession today. I think it's a fair ask that new construction be covered under the 15%. I have no problem with that, because the people who are building would know exactly what they're getting into, but the folks who have owned condos now and are our current owners, it seems a little retroactive to me to do that to them, given the opportunity to comply and have the proper enforcement. So that's what I have this morning, and I appreciate everybody's comments so far.
Okay. Anyone else?
I guess I'd like to say to my fellow counselors that I made a motion last week that was the past recommendation of the Marine Resources Task Force, which was that we basically hold off on this because we needed to gather additional information. It became apparent to me today that that was still the correct way to go, because we had speakers get up who gave us diametrically opposed facts. Yes, 15% film will crack a window and void your warranty. No, it won't. Do we know which of those facts are correct based on public comment? No. As a group, we don't. I've heard 2 stories about availability of the glass. To me, going forward today, to change this back is a bad idea. I think that the Marine Resources Task Force initial recommendation to us was the correct one, that we needed to gather more information to find out what is correct. I attended the demonstration at Pink Shell, and I can't tell you how impressed I am with them for going forward and showing that even when there's not a law in place, they're willing to do the right thing. And that demonstration verified to me that this 15% glass is not the horrible catastrophe that some people are painting it to be, that it seems to be a possible solution to this problem. So I won't be voting for the ordinance today, and I would ask my fellow counselors to consider going back to what we discussed last week.
Dan?
Well, first, I also went to the Pink Shell. Thank you to Mr. Wachulis for reaching out to all of us to be able to see the difference in some of the tinting. It was pretty enlightening to see, you know, what we talked about was a guest that comes in there doesn't know the difference. They don't know the difference between what was there and what is there now. So to them, it doesn't make so much of a difference. I think we can all agree that we want to do everything that we can do to protect the turtles as best as we can. And again, I appreciate the effort that they're putting forward to put the tint in. They feel it's the right decision for them. And I think that's what a lot of is getting missed here, is even if this goes back to 45% or stays at the 45%, there still are a lot of people who we've heard from that want to do the right thing. This would not prohibit them from still putting up 15% windows should they choose to. But it'll also give an avenue to what we've heard are some people that haven't changed their glass at all in 40 years because they just don't know what they can do. So any step forward, whether it's 45% or 15%, I think is a step in the right direction for the marina life as well as the condo owners. We do all know that, that window tinting does have a lot for, efficiency on your flooring, efficiency on your anybody that's ever been around shades, and Councilor Adderall could probably testify to this, when you're standing at a window and you put a shade down, you could feel the heat difference just on your body. So that's very important, but I also think it's important that we follow the facts. The state has done a lot of research on this. One of the things that was mentioned is that the FWC recommends the 15%, but it's not required. So I have to think about that as well. I think the 45% is the right way. I think heavier hand, if you will, in especially the repeat offenders that we all know are out there that we do see, and encourage. I'd strongly encourage the condos to put in 15%. If that makes life easier for the turtles, if it makes life easier for the volunteers that put a lot of work in, I think it's the right decision. Personally, if it was my house, I'd probably put in the 15%, but that doesn't necessarily mean I should sit up here and require that everyone has to do it. When I believe the good majority of the people on the island that do face the water are trying to do the right thing. That's about all I got.
Councilman Veach, you want to weigh in on this?
Sure, interesting discussion. I think that, I understand Councilman Adderholt's broad brush allegory, but I think that, we're doing that regardless. If you do 45% across the board, you're kind of implying that that's okay for everybody. I think that we already have a mechanism in, and that's our variance process, where if we have the current 15% rule, that if someone has a compelling case to make for their specific condo, or unit or house or whatever, if they have smaller windows, if the floor plan is such, if they don't allow short-term rentals, so they have more control over the lighting, those to me would all be factors in allowing a variance to go in place, as opposed to saying that everybody it's 45%. Because we know now, regardless of what the tests go, there's not going to be a magic cutoff. The only magic cutoff are blackout blinds. But it's a quantity of light. So putting 15% windows in as opposed to 45% just produces less light and reduces the likelihood of disorientations. The other thing it does because of this is that I think we were all there at Pink Shell, and Bill was pretty clear that one of his motivations for doing this was because calling up to the units and nagging them about their blinds was creating an adversarial relationship between him and his customers. And that's not a good business practice. That's not a good business practice for hotels. That's not a good business practice for people that do short-term rentals. You want it to be as easy and non-confrontational as possible. And 15% glass gets us there. So I really think that since we are dealing with different situations, and every one of these places up and down the beach have unique situations, we know that if you are building a house from scratch, you have more options. If you're retrofitting windows, your options are limited. And I think that the place to deal with this is not in making an ordinance as permissive, it's this making a restrictive ordinance, but then allowing for variances for special cases.
Bill, just to clarify a little bit, you had spoken about the Pink Shell. It's important to note that their window tint, their windows already are at 50%. So whether it's 45 or 15, they still wouldn't be in compliance. And they are at a point where they would have to add some sort of tinting irregardless. So the fact that they chose to go to 15, and I don't want to speak for them, but in my conversations with them, it wasn't a cost issue to go from 15%, or to go to the 45 or to go to the 15. And when they did put them, they didn't put them side by side, so it was very difficult to see. I don't know if you had a chance to see, but the 50% that the window already is versus the 45, there was two windows side by side that they had put the 45% on the one window, on the original window was 50%, and they were side by side. And you could really see a difference between the tinting. Now, I'm not advocating that they shouldn't go down to 15. I just want to be clear that their windows weren't in compliance anyway, so they would have had to do something.
Okay. Does anyone wish to make a motion to move this forward to a second hearing?
I'll move ordinance, I gotta get my glasses on.
22-11.
22-11 to second reading.
I would second that, Mr. Mayor. I would be willing, though, to amend the currently drafted ordinance, and assuming my colleagues are okay with this, to include new construction as well for the 15%, but not for the 45%. But for the existing structures, 45%, but 15% for the new construction, assuming folks are comfortable with that. I would retract it if they're not.
My only concern with that is the building that's going up, Grandview. Do we know, have they ordered their windows yet? Would this automatically put them in a position that they would have to reorder all their windows? I mean, that's the only real big,
No, sir.
it wouldn't,
And the reason why is generally when we permit it, you're approved at the code that was in place on the day of the permitting.
do we know of any other buildings that are in process right now or have been approved that are potentially going up that this could affect?
Well, no, because today, a new building, let's just say someone walked in at 10/26, they would have been at 15% if they submitted their permit, for today. So you're giving them, as I understand the motion, you're giving them relief. So if that person wanted to sort of reconsider, they would then withdraw that permit request, and if this passes if what's proposed passes in 2 weeks, could theoretically go under that mode if something more lenient winds up being the ultimate decision of town council. So, as I understand Council Adderholt's amendment, he's saying that it's new construction is at 15 and retrofits would remain at 45. Is that correct?
That is correct, and so currently, the way the ordinance reads, any new construction is already at 15%. So we would just keep that at 15% for new construction, but for replacement, go back to the 45%. That would be my suggestion anyways.
That makes sense to me. I would be willing to amend my motion to include the language laid out by Councilor.
And if you'd indulge me further, Councilor Allers, could I ask the town manager, is there anything in the ordinance itself that we need to change to give the town the necessary tools it needs to enhance enforcement, Roger, or is that a policy decision for the council and the town enforcement folks to make? Do you need anything codified in the ordinance itself to enhance your ability to be more aggressive on the enforcement side?
Well, I think the short answer to that is no. Other than the understanding of you and hopefully the public and hopefully our friends on the media will understand that that this is a serious issue that the town's going to take seriously. Many of you have talked about the Pink Shell as and their decision. That they came to their decision because after 5 years of pretty much the beginning of turtle season, my having a conversation with Bill Wachtrulis and him trying to chase down, all his guests, he just came to the realization that it was taking up a lot of his and our resources to the point where it was just easier for him to make the change, and at 15% pretty much ensure himself that he will be in compliance, at least as it pertains to window, lights that are covered by those windows. The people who live in their units full-time, or full-time residents, or even seasonal residents who don't rent, I think, with education, we get to them and they understand, and occasionally they may forget, or they run out and leave a light on or something like that, but that's really more the exception than the rule. The real problem is when we have transient units. Takes a tremendous amount of effort. I think the example is, at least in the case of the Pink Shell, they realize that it's just impossible to stay on top of it. We need their help. We need them to do exactly what Ms. Johnson said she does, and that is go out there after talking what you said you did, Councilor Adderholt, go out there and look at your building. And if they go look at their building twice, 3 times a week, and Chad looks at their building twice a week, hopefully, with God's grace, the other 2 nights a week will be okay. But this idea of you know, the town has to catch us. The town has to prove that the light came from unit, 6B, to the extent of someone who's being up for a murder charge is, a little bit, demanding upon us and all of us who want to protect the sea turtles. So, yeah, do we look at a building and say, oh, we cited 6B and it's really 6A? Yeah, that happens. But that could be avoided if the people in the building look at it, because they know the window that belongs to 6A versus the window that belongs to 6B.
Your point's well taken. I guess what I'm trying to get at is we sort of make a policy shift to,
Well, I think if you added a whereas clause to the ordinance that stated that unequivocally that the council believes that protecting sea turtles is critical, and that that you direct the staff to enforce the code fully, that would be a clear message not only for the folks in the room today, but people going forward that
and that
is your
would
desire.
that would cover enforcement and fining for going beyond disorientations, correct? For the violation in
We'll
and of
follow
itself.
your direction, yes, sir.
Very good. Well, if the attorney got that, I would like to, assuming Counselor Hours is okay, to include that as a whereas as well, to make sure that direction is set.
And what I heard you say, Councilor Holt, was after someone got a warning, if they're not in compliance, not because of a disorientation, but if they're not in compliance after a warning, that they should be cited at that point.
Yeah, and I think that shouldn't start upon passage. If they've had a warning previously, I don't think there should be a warning opportunity anymore. I think, if they've already had a warning, even if it was last year, I think we proceed to the next step. That would be how I would view it, assuming everybody's comfortable with that.
Yeah, well,
Just one thing I've observed, in listening to the some of the speakers, Councilman Adderholt, is there there seems to be some that are saying that they don't believe that our current criteria for a violation is valid, and it sounds like there's some people who will resist these, the way we do this. So the Conservancy recommends that you enforce this.
It's a challenge, but having, again, walked along the beach at night, it's pretty self-evident who the flagrant violators are, and it's sort of like the old Supreme Court's definition of pornography. You know it when you see it, and I know that can be arbitrary. My suggestion to the town is to go after the obvious violations first, to make sure it's very clear and difficult to refute. People obviously have their redress, of course, and should. But again, there's enough obvious violations out there to send a message that I don't think we have to go to the gray areas to get that point across, I think. But it is a challenge, there's no question about it.
And I just also point out one thing, that because this is actually a vote to make this ordinance that we pass more permissive. Another point is that back to the idea of using a variance, to keeping this ordinance in place. But if someone comes with a valid claim to make a variance, it can be considered by council. That claim can include enforcement mechanisms. It can include quite a few elements that now are subjective, or people may be equivocating on to apply.
I guess the thing I would add to this conversation is that the will of the council appears to be, although the mayor has not given his opinion today, that we
Not
shift
yet.
to,
Not yet, Vice Mayor.
that we shift to more enforcement. And the thing I would remind everybody is, you shift to more enforcement, you've then shifted the financial burden of this problem to the town, rather than to the people that are causing the problem by not having good glass, or keeping their curtains closed, or using timers, or whatever. Personally, I don't believe, seeing the flagrant violations that I see, that 2 days a week are enough. And so your idea of going with more enforcement, if you're just going to go with what we've just talked about doing, isn't going to be enough. We're going to have to add employees, we're going to have to add costs to the town budget to follow the plan that you seem to be advocating at this point. So I'd just like to remind you, you're shifting then the financial costs to us by doing that.
Yeah, and I'll comment on that. We were reminded earlier that the burden is on us. It was told to us by the speakers here that the burden of enforcement is on us. And in my opinion, you want to hear my opinion, my opinion is that the only way compliance is going to come into effect here with all this discussion is enforcement. You just heard it said that Pink Shell got tired. They had enough. They put their hands up and said, enough. We're just going to go to the 15%. We'll do it ourselves. That's what's going to happen with these other violators. With I don't want to say specific names, but the constant violators that you're talking about, Jim, if the heavy hand of enforcement, and that's what this is going to take now. It's going to take the heavy hand of enforcement. The same way that the enforcement is going to have to be used with people riding bikes on the sidewalks and so forth and so on. We've been criticized, and violations out on the beach with the vendors and so forth. We've been criticized in the past for not enforcing our ordinances, Now, we have this before us now where people are demanding that we enforce these ordinances. And that's what it's come to. So, to answer your question, Vice Mayor, you had questions about, you didn't have the answers that these people said. You'll have a couple of weeks to get those answers. And I think that you'll be able to do that in the time given. So is there any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Well, just real quick to kind of piggyback on what has been said between you and Madam Vice Mayor. You know, I believe that, at least I want to believe, we still live in a world where people want to do the right thing, that they want to close the blinds. Sometimes they forget, and that's where the warning comes in. But I also grew up in a time where your parents were allowed to take the belt to your backside if you did something wrong. And it didn't take too many of those for me to realize I didn't want to make that same mistake again. I know it's probably not the best analogy, but when people start being enforced the way they should be enforced, I think that, as the mayor very well said, they're going to want to change themselves. And all we can do is hope that people want to do the right things, and those that don't, or those that choose that this doesn't fall in the wheelhouse of something that they want to follow, then they'll pay the consequences.
I guess
I would just kind of follow up with that, Councilman, that, I think that, using 15% glass is something that's easy to enforce compared to the lighting itself. And, if 15% glass means we don't have to take the belt to condo owners, that to me would be a preferable path.
the thing that we have found is that we have a transient island. And if you don't go with a more self-enforcing method like using the windows, the problem is going to continue. Because even if you enforce, the transient nature of the island means that you're going to have different people in there all the time, and they're going to continue to have to write citations for folks. This is just not the right path.
And therein lies my point, that eventually they're going to tire of the enforcement, the fines, et cetera, because that's what it's going to take. And then they'll decide, that enough is enough. We'll slap up the film or do whatever we have to do until our windows are replaced. And at that time, they'll put in the 15%. This is going to happen by attrition over time. That's the way it's going to happen, in my humble opinion.
And I guess I just point to the liens that we're having to enforce against folks that we have fined over and over and over again, and to the point where we then had to place a lien on their property, and we're now having to go after taking their property and selling it in order to get them to pay those fines, and they still haven't complied with other things that we've asked them to do on the island.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. It's been amended.
Mr. Mayor, I need to add the date to my motion. I've been informed that the second reading will be June 6th at 9 a.m.
Second.
Okay, it's been discussed. All in favor of moving this forward to a second hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 3-2 with Councilman Veach and Vice Mayor Hasselfrost dissenting.
Be nice if you'd let us vote.
Pardon me?
You didn't even let us vote. You just assumed how we were going to vote. I am voting no, but you do need to let us vote.
I asked all in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
I voted no.
Okay, very good. That's what I thought.
And I did as well, just in case there's some,
I'm sorry, Bill.
consideration of the way I'm in today.
All righty. we'll move on. The next item is the administrative agenda. And this is the 2022 Citizen of Distinction. The town has received the nomination of Pat McEwen for the annual Fort Myers Beach Citizen of Distinction Award in the area of arts and culture for his authoring of the History of the Mound House book entitled Crown Jewel of Fort Myers Beach, The Mound House. So, okay. Is there a motion to approve this nomination?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection?
Oh, I'm gonna, if I could,
sorry.
Mr. Mayor, just take a
Yeah.
second. This book, The Crown Jewel of Fort Myers Beach, The Mound House by Patrick McGowan, has been a tremendous blessing to historians who want to memorialize all the events that led up to the Mound House, but also it's been a great fundraising tool for the Mound House. Mr. McGowan, as I understand it, donated his time, a lot of time, to this effort, and he highlighted so many wonderful people on the island who have been part of this effort. And so I commend him for his effort and his public service on this particular book. Just wanted to show the book. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Any further discussion? Any objection? Okay, that passes, and we'll put that on a future. Okay, the next item is Audit Committee appointments. The Audit Committee has, currently has 3 vacancies on their 7-member board. Fort Myers Beach residents Michael Hauser, Jack Leeson, I'm sorry, Sherry Misgan, and Barbara Puffer are each requesting to be appointed to one of the seats. This is the committee that I'm liaison to. And Clerk, why don't you just pass out the forms and we'll vote.
You're Mr. Leeson? No.
Thank you. Pencil, eh?
Should use pencil.
Since the town attorney indicated that Mr. Veach could vote,
Okay. Bill, you want to submit your votes?
I'm sure. I just do it verbally, I guess.
Yeah.
Actually, and I'm really impressed that we got these candidates. They're extremely well qualified. I'm particularly impressed that we have 2 CPAs, Michael and Sherry. And so I think I would put 1, 2, and 4, because there's 3 votes, right?
Yes. So the 2 CPAs and Barbara Puffer. Correct?
And I guess we can eliminate considering moving the audit committee to 5 people after this.
Okay.
Okay.
By unanimous vote, the 3 members are Michael Hauser, Sherry Misgan, and Barbara Puffer.
Very good. Thank you, council members, and thank you to the folks that have volunteered. Appreciate that, and it's historical. The vice mayor pointed out earlier that that's the first lady to be appointed to this very austere committee. So anyhow, it's nice to have the ladies aboard. Okay, the next item is Resolution 22-21, Laguna Shores Channel Dredge Assessment. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, proposing the establishment and funding of the Laguna Shores Dredging Assessment Area within the area of the town described herein for the purpose of paying the cost of the Laguna Shores Canal Dredging Project, paying other project financing and collection costs, making certain findings and determinations of special benefit and the logical relationship between the dredging project and the benefit received, specifying the total estimated capital cost of the dredging project, specifying the unit of measurement for and the estimated maximum amount of said assessment to be levied against each parcel within the described area, specifying the number of years said assessment is to be levied, allowing for the prepayment of the special assessment, providing for annual adjustments to the amount of the assessment if necessary, providing for certain other authorizations and delegations of authority in relation thereto, and providing for severability and effective date. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just a real quick question for the town manager. Did we ever hear back, I know that there was some discussion about the percentage of people within the Laguna Shores that hadn't been reached, or do we have a number of people that are on board with this?
I don't have a updated number of persons beyond what Bruce Butcher reported to town council at a public session, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, or a meeting ago. I don't know if they continued to get signatures after they, exceeded the, I think, 54 persons, lot owners. As he said at the time, as you recall, that at this point, many of the folks are out of town or, not at their residence, so it was getting challenging as season dwindled down for him to track those folks down.
Okay.
Okay. Just as an aside, I actually went through that pass the other evening and with former Councilman Butcher and Mr. Poff from down there, and it's a little dicey getting through, and we did speak of this, and I asked them that very question, Councilman, about participation, and they said it was extremely high in the neighborhood. So anyhow, any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is ITB 22-10. This is the Laguna Shores Channel dredge contract. This is to authorize the town manager to enter an agreement with Arbor Tree and Land, Inc., which I find an unusual name for a dredging company, but the low, responsive, and responsible bidder to ITB-22-10 EN to perform the Laguna Shores Channel Dredge Project in an amount not to exceed $585,905 and expend budgeted funds for the project. Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into this agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just real quick, for the general public, town manager, if you would, the money that was budgeted for the town's portion of this, if I'm not mistaken, was $500,000 in the last budget cycle, not to exceed.
sir.
So the 585, that's the total cost to do. So our portion would be something, just under 300.
Yeah, at this point, we're assuming that each of the parties, the property owners would pay $300. We're figuring with ancillary costs, and we would spend $300. However, until we get all the assessment payments in, we're gonna have to front that money.
Understood. And if there is money that was budgeted that is not used, where does that money then go?
Well, that would become part of what we call the savings that we put on the add-on list for the council to look at and decide what they want to do to reappropriate it.
That's all I needed. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any objection to the motion? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is 2022 Estero Island Beach Monitoring. This is to approve supplemental task authorization number 14 with Coastal Engineering Consultants, Inc. in the amount of $47,013 for professional engineering services to conduct annual monitoring of beach profiles along the shoreline of Estero Island, and authorizing the town manager to execute the supplemental task or authorization and expend budgeted funds. Is there a motion to approve this task authorization number 14?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. The next item is Bork Bay Oaks recreational additional services. This is to approve supplemental task authorization number 14 in the not-to-exceed amount of $109,886 for additional work on the Bay Oaks redevelopment project and community pool, and authorize the town manager to execute the supplemental task authorization with DRMP Inc. Is there a motion to approve this supplemental task authorization?
I'll move to approve.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Discussion?
Yeah, there was one thing that caught my eye here. It looked like we're paying a consultant to hire another consultant. I believe it was on the last page.
Yeah, we have, there's the main consultant, the RMP, and there are sub-consultants associated with this project. So you have engineers, you have architects, you have structural engineers, you have, a variety, it's not one firm doing all the work. And if you may recall, Counselor, when they came in, you would have Ryan, and you would have Matt, and then you would have the project engineer all here. So there's multiple companies working on this.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is final public comment. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment? No one? Okay, we'll move on. Next item is town manager items.
So two things I have on my list for today. The first thing is, of several of the folks representing Murph mentioned that they're working on the brochure, which is, the printing of which is budgeted, but I do believe that there's some assistance they're requesting from staff members such as Jenny Dexter and Allison Geeson, et cetera. So we normally, make sure that if we're gonna allocate staff resources to a committee effort beyond the liaison, that council is aware of that and authorizes that. Because as you well know, we have multiple committees, and if they all made demands on town staff directly, it could be problematic. So you've heard the desire to move forward with the brochure. We have no problem with providing staff assistance, but we just want you to be aware of it and be okay with us providing that assistance.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, so then the next thing that came up at today's meeting was the concerns on Sterling with regard to stormwater. So just taking a minute to go back in history, that the town hired a engineer, Tetra Tech, to do a master stormwater plan for the island. They analyzed the island and created tiers of drainage severity. The highest priority tier was where the county wanted the joint outfalls and the local streets that were adjacent to those. And then the next priority was completing the work that we had previously started many years ago in the sort of downtown area, and that was just recently completed. And then the next body of work was to be completed was Tier 1, which was 15 streets, and there was a 16th street added by prior action. Now, those streets are designed. They're, for the most part, fully permitted by the state and by the U.S. government. So those will be going to construction very soon. In fact, probably at your next meeting, you'll be seeing the contract award and the authorization to utilize our consultant in Tallahassee with regards to our state revolving loan portion of getting of funding that project. Now, if with regard to the issues on Sterling, you can't, you really can't elevate them to tier 1, but you could elevate them to tier 2 if you wish to do that. The, as indicated, they're in a later tier. The things we can do in the interim to try to mediate the situation is make sure we have a duckbill on the outfalls so that they're not getting sort of backflow from high tides. We can look and see that the swales that we had in place to assist the drainage on that street are in fact as designed and have not been filled in by the neighbors or otherwise impeded over time. And of course that, you know, any structures that we have on Sterling are functioning correctly, and if they need to be cleaned. So if you wish us to move Sterling into tier 2, we can do that, and of course we could do all those intermediate steps if you wish us to do those as part of our normal operations.
I would wish you to do that, to move them up, just by virtue of the fact that she took the time to come in here to complain about it. I think they should be elevated. It sounds like they're really having a problem down there. And the duckbill business, I was down on Curlew the other day, my old street, and it was in the middle of the day at the high tide, and the water was pushing up again out of the drain. So I don't know whether those are inspected regularly or not after they install those to see how they're working, but this wasn't working, and the water was coming back up out of the drain. So I'm just throwing that out there to inspect, because for years when I lived there, we had the same difficulty. On the high tides, the bay water would come up out of the drains onto the street, and then throw a couple of inches of rain on top of it, and you had a foot of water in the street, and not to mention a couple of other drainage issues. So if it's okay with the rest of the council members, if there's no objection, I'd just as soon move those Sterling folks up, and anything you can do in the meantime to alleviate any of their problems down there in the short term, I'd look into that as well.
I would be in agreement with that, and I think this is further indication of what I asked to add to agenda management at a recent meeting, which was the sea level rise problem. I think that these two streets are not going to be the only ones that we're having this issue with as time goes by. So it certainly interrelates to that, and I look forward to that future discussion of the sea level rise issue and what parts of the island we need to address first when it comes to that issue.
So can I just react to the duckbill issue?
Yes.
So clearly, if there's any debris that makes it through the drainage system that gets lodged in the duckbill, obviously then the duckbill won't close and you get that backflow type of situation that you were alluding to, Mr. Mayor. So as we've grown our system, you know, one of the things that I know Christie is looking at is whether we have to grow our maintenance to deal with the increased number of structures and things that we have to maintain, and I'm sure she'll be looking closely at that issue in terms of preparing her budget.
So it's really incumbent upon the neighbors in the neighborhood to notify the town if there's a problem, because obviously you won't be aware of everything that's going on every day all the time. So if they notify the town that there's a difficulty, someone can be sent out to inspect the duckbill, see if anything's caught in there, anything's clogging up the system, and go from there. Okay, great. That's great.
Just a comment on this. So my understanding of the area, I know it's very low lying, is that it mostly depends on surface swales, and that are not, I don't know, you know, this unique situation since it's so low lying for a couple of reasons. One is that there's less elevation to get rid of the water, which means the water moves slower. If you put a duckbill in there, it would be interesting to have an engineer look at that and see if the resistance that the duckbill creates for water going out, you know, enough force to be able to open up that valve, if that'll cause water to back up more during rain events. and maybe even look and see if there are swales that we need to reclaim as part of this.
I think you're correct in that there are swales that need to be reshaped or modified to their original design criteria due to just time. Then we have the others that were, over time, have been carried over or covered over in some way, shape, or form by perhaps a property owner. So we have to do all of that. With regard to the duckbill design itself, the amount of head or pressure that conveyance system generates, of course, needs to be sufficient to, when the water is flowing outward, to open up the duckbill, but also be set at a capacity where if its tide is high above the duckbill, it'll be closed. And obviously, if it's going out when it's high tide, it'll be closed. The water's not going to go through the duckbill. So that's how the design criteria is pretty much set by the engineer, and the amount of head that conveyance system generates. And we, of course, it's all things based on their drainage calculations with respect to that.
And I think it's an important point for the people in that area to know is that it's a unique challenge with the very low elevation, because intrusion of tidal water is not really stormwater. So it's a difficult problem, and it will take maybe a different solution.
Yeah, you're right about that, because there's the secondary problem of the fact that, and the Vice Mayor was alluding to it, it's clear to me just from living here 5 years, is that the high tides are getting higher. So we have to figure out a way to deal with that, because I see people's docks, marginal docks behind their houses that used to be below the high water line. Maybe on a severe, king tide the water might approach the top of the dock, and now they're, regularly being overflown by the tides. So that is an issue, and, if the windows were a challenge, if window tinting was a challenge, that'll be a real challenge.
Just one more.
And I do believe that the governor recently allocated the money for the resiliency to look at issues like this, sea level rise, and not just Sterling, but we can probably find out what other areas in the island have a similar problem.
That's correct, Councilor Veach. And one of our staff initiatives for the add-on list for the 23 budget will be for analysis of the town's resiliency. And that's a precursor activity required to be able to tap into those state funds that you're alluding to.
Just one more question while we're on the subject of the streets. The street immediately to the north of Charlie Brown's there, Charlie's Boathouse, Bahia Villa, they've been severely impacted with flooding since the road construction. And I know there's been some swale digging down at near the bay on that street. I'm just wondering if that's in the present tier, or if that's been, Christie, you want to come up and talk about that?
We'll know that off the top of her head.
Christy Corey for the record. First, thank you very much. I actually had a conversation with Ms. Newsom before she left, and thank you for letting me add that to Tier 1. But Bahia Villa,
If you can get it in Tier 1, that'd be fine.
Because isn't Tier 1 all permanent and all that?
we can add by change order.
Okay, well, okay, as soon as we have the engineering, we'll add it in.
Yeah, we can
Tier
add.
1.5.
Yeah. But yes, Bahia Villa has also been added, and Charlie's Boathouse was gracious enough to give us an easement just right off the bat. They were amazing. So they gave us an easement. We also have 2 other homeowners that have given us an easement down Bahia Villa, so I think it's gonna work out beautifully. We did, the maintenance, stormwater maintenance crew did do the swales just as a temporary kind of Band-Aid, trying to help the street out until we got there with construction. And I think from speaking to the residents, it did help mainly in that area. But then as you got towards the end, they weren't getting enough relief. So that's why we wanted to put the system in place. So that will be also in Tier 1.
So how far along are they, Christie, then? Till
So,
construction?
right, so currently we have bid openings tomorrow, and then we will come to council on June 6th. The bad news is, we have a 24-week lead time on materials. Brass alone is 24 weeks out. So we're looking at kind of the same, you know, when Roger mentioned to you about Times Square, that we were considering purchasing the materials so we could be on time. We're running into that issue. Everyone is. It's not just us, it's everyone. So
Well,
we're,
at least we can tell the folks we're on it then. yeah.
yes, and anyone that has contacted me, I am letting them know that. And if we have issues with streets, I have let them know that I will bring that to council and ask it for it, you know, to be added. There are some, like Roger said, some permitting issues, but, you know, it hasn't been an issue before if we get a change order and it's approved by council to be able to go back to, you know, FDOT or FDEP and add them to it. So it's not such a big deal.
And I think the other thing is, if there's a sort of a secondary message to be sent out about the street you were just alluding to, Mr. Mayor, is that, you know, in cases where people want to give us easements, we should be elevating them because they're helping themselves and their neighbors
Absolutely.
deal with their stormwater issues on the street versus where some cases, unfortunately, where a person says, well, it's not flooding by my house, so I really don't care. So, you know, in the case of Bahia, we have people who are stepping up and giving us the necessary easements, so that facilitates not only the project, but the success of the project.
Great.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a lesson there for some of the others that we're having
Yes.
difficulty with.
And I just wanted to mention, when you were speaking about the duckbills, we have moved to inline check valves on the new, and Ms. Newsom impressed me when she talked about the tidal flex and stuff like that, so I knew she was in the business somewhere. But the duckbills were having, like Roger said, something comes in and gets stuck, and then it causes that duckbill to stay open. So we're getting that tidal influx, but we're moving to inline check valves, which is actually inside the pipe, and we're not having those maintenance issues. So we are changing a little bit as we learn things and go through the projects. We're kind of,
So just by virtue of being out of the canal and in the pipe, there's less debris to get.
exactly.
Good.
So I just wanted to let you know that also.
Excellent. All right. Anything else, Roger?
That's it, sir.
Town attorney.
No items today, Mr. Mayor.
Good to see you again, Victor.
You too as well.
All right. Okay, we'll bring it back to, let's see.
Could I ask a question of the town attorney?
Sure.
I believe that we all, maybe I just got it, but I believe that we all got an email from a resident asking for a status on the litigation to dissolve the critical wildlife area. Did anybody else get that email?
I did.
Okay. Is there a trial date set for that, to your knowledge, Mr. Sanabria?
To my knowledge, I'm not certain. I'd have to follow up with you on that.
If you could, so that I could answer this person's question.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for the attorney? Bill, you have any questions for the attorney? I don't want to ignore you. Okay, the next item, then we'll move on. Council members' items, and the first item, we might as well knock it out of the park here, is the annual review of the town manager. So I'll just open it up to the council. Whoever wants to start, go right ahead. Roger, you're welcome to stay. You can leave. You can do whatever you want. You're a good man. You'll stay.
I'll go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I've had conversations with Roger in private. I've also made comments in public as far as where I feel his employment is in my eyes. Nothing's really changed. As I said, I've spoken with Roger in private. We've discussed a couple of things, and I'll just leave it at that.
Very good. Anyone else?
Well, I'll say a couple things. I've also had a meeting with Roger and discussed a lot of performance issues and positive and challenges and so forth. And I just think as an island, as we go through this renaissance, there are significant construction projects. We just heard about the water and stormwater projects that are still ongoing. We've got Bayside Park, we've got Times Square, we've got Bay Oaks. The county has projects, private sector has projects that we need to coordinate with. And those big construction projects, I think they play into our town manager's strengths. And, with losing the public works director and that institutional knowledge and not having a finance director and that institutional knowledge, it just makes the situation with the town manager in terms of stability all the more important. I think on the challenge part, I would like to see, I'd like to see us enhance our relationship with our county partners. I'd like to see more relationship building and collaboration with the county. I'd like to see better communication. I saw Roger the other day, and this is a compliment, honestly. The board cab meeting was having a meeting, and you came in halfway through because they had some questions, and you came in appropriately and gave them an itinerary of all the projects going on the beach, the financing, the timing. I learned things I'd never heard before. It was excellent. And I think everyone was enlightened by that. We have a great story to tell on the island. I would just encourage you to continue to tell it. If we don't tell our story, other people are going to tell our story. And I think the communication piece, I know we have a public or a communications person now with the town, but I think it's incumbent upon us all to try to tell that story. And the town manager, who really has the closest grasp on all the facts and issues as they're constantly changing, I think you just got to make effort to not just at advisory committees, but to the council meetings and quite frankly to the media to help tell that story and help give some people some clarity and some direction as to how things are going. So I think that could be helpful. That's all I've got. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Bill Veach.
Well, Roger would probably tell you that I speak with him often and speak with him frankly about things that I think he's doing well and things that I disagree with. But I think that he's got a good skill set, particularly for where we are now. I agree with Councilman Adderholt that I'm not Chelsea with a loss, especially with all these infrastructure projects, and that I'm not a big fan of changing horses in the stream, especially when you don't have a better horse ready to go. So I think that I appreciate what Roger's doing. I particularly like the grants and the money that he brings into the town to alleviate the burden from our taxpayers. So I support Roger.
Very good. I don't think there's any big secret how I feel about the town manager. I'm very pleased with his performance. As far as evaluating him, I evaluate the town manager every 2 weeks. Every time we have a meeting, I'm evaluating either with him personally or by myself thinking about it. So I concur with a couple of the statements that were made. Jim, Councilman Adderholt, I agree with you that one of the big problems that we have is, and the town manager has, is that he doesn't blow his own horn enough and let people know what's actually going on. So that's all part of communication. There is so much going on, so many positive things going on, and you kind of get, with all the day-to-day minutiae, that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But so I think that between the manager and the PIO, that and it has been improving, but more information needs to be forthcoming about all the positive things that are going on in the town. God knows everybody will hear about the negative things. Don't worry about that. And as far as what Bill said, Councilman Veach, about these town managers, they get criticized for the big salaries they make and so forth and so on. Well, hopefully we're paying Roger what the market is for these salaries, and frankly he's probably, I'm pretty sure he's below the market, and he's also a lifelong. This has been his career, his whole career, which he's nearing the end of here pretty soon. I'm not throwing you out the door, Roger, but one of these days you're going to retire, and he should be at the top of his range at this point in his career. So I don't begrudge that against anyone. But the other side of that is, and Councilman Veach mentioned it, is the amount of money that these guys bring in. I mean, all it takes is one grant of $1 million, and he's paid for his salary 5 times over, or 4 times, or whatever it is. So I don't go along with all of that criticism about what these gentlemen are made. And they're also in these tenuous positions where, you know, if they do last a long time, it speaks volumes for their performance, but it's a very tenuous position. Their jobs are very tenuous. All it takes is 3 votes of a council, and they're out the door, and here they go again, you know. So it's a difficult position to be in, and as everybody in that profession knows. So, Roger, I think you're doing a great job. I ask you to keep up the good work, and we're going to have a great year and a great couple of years to come, and hopefully we'll both be around to enjoy it. So,
From the Vice Mayor?
pardon me?
From the Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I brought along the form that is the form we're supposed to use to evaluate the town manager as set forth in our policy manual. It first lists the town charter responsibilities, and I'm not going to go through all those because everybody's talked a lot already. But the thing that I haven't heard mentioned is our town manager's relationship with our employees. I do go and talk to the employees, and I get a lot of feedback from them, and I can tell you that the amount of positive feedback I've received from the employees has been really great to hear. I wander the halls of Town Hall, and I see the good morale that we have and the good relationship they have with our town manager. And I'm pleased to see that, and I think that's so important because our town employees are the town to the people who live in our town. That's who they have interaction with and relationship with. And I appreciate the choices he's made in filling positions and that the good relationship he's maintained with our employees. A lot of the other things have already been mentioned here. I will say this, that the basis of evaluation form also indicates that we're to evaluate the town manager on strategic plan goals. And we have not done that for a while, and I would like to suggest to my fellow counselors that we add that to the agenda to set some new goals, because we really can't be evaluating the town manager on his achievement of goals unless we have set forth those priorities for him. I can tell you informally he's received those goals for us in town council meetings, but I think it's good for us to set out something a little more concrete along those lines. And the last thing is the management of our assets, and I have been pleased to see the progress and forward movement that we've had with our budgets as the years have gone by. I am not a person who is good at understanding financial things, and I let that be known early on that I would appreciate that things be set forth a little more clearly, and I can tell you that I believe that our budget process has improved, and somebody mentioned recently in something that I read that they didn't think we were saving, and I would have to disagree with that, because I think we have more money in reserves now than we've ever had since I've been a counselor. So, and with that, I will conclude my remarks.
Well, I'll just piggyback on one thing you said there about you were alluding to the financial condition of the town, and we have the audit committee has the preliminary auditor's report, and the committee asked the accountants, the CPAs, point blank on the Zoom, just what kind of financial position the town is in, and they said very healthy, probably the best they've ever been in. So if that's more positive information that the town and the taxpayers and the citizens should know about. I mean, that we're doing very well and still maintaining all these various projects at the same time. So we'll bring it back to the council. Any other items that they'd like? I'll start with you, Councilman Adderholt.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick things. The TDC meeting was on Thursday, and they formalized the beach and shoreline fiscal year 23 projects, and our projects were approved. Now, what gets a little confusing is the beach renourishment piece was not part of that formal agenda that was approved. That will be going through the beach reserve trust fund that the TDC has because of the significant size of the ask. And that's currently now, in terms of how that will be handled, is currently going to be handled in an interlocal agreement between the town and the county, so those negotiations are going on. I had the privilege of meeting with Commissioner Sandelli after the TDC meeting, went over to his office and to discuss the renourishment issue, and he was gracious enough to have the director of Lee County Transportation there, as well as the deputy county manager, and we went through the renourishment issue, discussed its importance. And while I was there, I was asked about the $1.4 million the county wants to allocate to Fort Myers Beach on the lighting piece. They were considering proceeding on utilizing those dollars to light the crosswalks. And I suggested it may be better to hold off on that until we have a better idea of what our overall aggregate plan is, and then utilize those $1.4 million as part of that broader plan once we have a better sense of what the fixture is and what the design is and layout and so forth. And I said, that is just me speaking. I want to, they said, would you please ask your colleagues about that and see if you can reach agreement as to how you would want to proceed on that. So I hope everybody's okay with me doing that, because I think they're looking for direction. And is everyone all right with them? Again, I know there's different thoughts on how much should be contributed and so forth, but with respect to what's been committed, is everyone okay with holding off, with them holding off on beginning to implement those crosswalk issues, and then holding off until we have a broader solution, and then incorporating those dollars in that broader solution? I guess I'm asking my colleagues that so that I can convey back to them what our preference is. They were happy to do what our preference was, but they were looking for direction.
I would agree with you, Jim. It seems like we need to go through our budget process upcoming this summer. So I would be in agreement with you.
Did they happen to mention if they were thinking about moving forward with illuminating the crosswalks, what fixture they were going to use?
You know, it's interesting. They did not. I think they just felt like they didn't want to be negligent with utilizing those dollars unless we had a broader plan that we wanted to hold off on using those dollars for a broader solution. I think they just wanted direction with respect to how to proceed. So I don't know if it had gotten to that point, Councilor Allers, as to specifically what fixture they were going to use and how they were going to utilize it. But I think, again, depending on what fixture we choose, I assume we're going to want our crosswalks to marry well with whatever fixture we choose. So again, having it be part of our broader solution, seems to make sense for me. But you guys have a lot of lighting experience, so. But I think we, at a minimum, ought to be working in concert with each other.
I guess that's kind of what I was getting at, because part of me wants to get the ball rolling.
Yep.
And if they seem to have the momentum or the want to move forward with at least starting the process, perhaps it gives us the blueprint of what we have to do then on the rest of the the rest of the boulevard. Should we light it, or they light it, or whoever lights it? So I guess I'm kind of torn. I mean, the fastest we can get these crosswalks lit, I would be in favor of. But I understand your point about how long do we want to wait? I mean, we're putting a lot of hope in that this one fixture is going to make the tariff cut, if you will. And if they have, I mean, maybe, I guess I would like more information. I'd like to know from them where they're at in the process. Are they just thinking about starting to look at design? Are they starting, or do they already have something worked out in their mind?
That's a great question, and my recommendation would be to at least wait until June to see if our fixture's approved. If it's not approved and we have to kind of go back and regroup, I would agree with you that for them to begin on those crosswalks ASAP makes sense, but for them, we're almost through May. If they could hang on just a little bit, because if the fixtures are approved, we're going to want to make sure those crosswalks work in concert with the fixture that we're going to use throughout the boulevard, I think. But, I again, defer to my colleagues on this.
I'll tell you the way I feel about this. We're getting everything piecemeal, You talk to Sandelli, you talk to Sandelli, he talks to somebody, he talks to somebody, Roger talks to somebody. What I would suggest that we do to eliminate all this is to have a joint meeting with the county commissioners. Set up an agenda, put 2 or 3 items on the agenda that we can talk about, big items, and get in a room and sit down with these guys and hash it out. Because it's coming in from 20 different directions now, and we're getting nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And this is not unheard of. We've done it a few times over the years where we've sat down with the commissioners, had joint meetings, and, you know, we can do it wherever. We can do it in their chambers, we can do it down here. We've done it both over the years. We can pick a neutral spot, not in a bad way, neutral, just a different spot. But I think we ought to get in a room and just sit down with these guys around the table and start talking about some of these items, because we're not going anywhere with these. And we need to get the managers together and the council together at the same time and start hammering some of these things out, because we're not getting off the dime. We're just not getting off the dime.
Well, I'm not opposed to that. If you want to facilitate that, Mr. Mayor, that'd be fine, and I'll hold off on responding. I do want to say, just in fairness, the meeting that I had with Commissioner Sandelli and his senior team, they could not have been more gracious and supportive in working with us to try to find some answers. So I just want to say for the record, the tone of that meeting was excellent, and they really are trying to work positively with our island. So, but I'm not opposed to your idea of having a broader meeting.
You know what? I'm sure they were very gracious to you, and they should be. But, Jim, I'm going to attribute this to your lack of experience in dealing with the county. I've been dealing with them for 20-something years now. I know how it operates, and we're not getting anywhere with these guys. So, you know, you have a meeting, I have a meeting, you know, everybody has a meeting, but there's no meeting of the minds. It's all disjointed. And until, as I say, until we sit down and get in a room together and work these things out, there'll be no change, because I've seen it. I've seen how it operates, and I'm not. You can blame that on whatever you want, the bureaucracy, the individuals, whatever. Just pick one, you know. But that's been the experience over the years, and there's lots of reasons for that I can go into, but I'd rather not right now. But that would be my suggestion. And Mr. Manager, with the blessing of the council, if you want to make contact with the county manager and see if we can't, if he can put that out to his members and let them know in a public meeting that we request a meeting with the county commission, that would be fantastic.
I can do that.
You know, one point that I would make, though, about the 2 choices that Councilman Adderholt put forward is that it seems to me that, you know, getting money up front and then we pay the annual fees, the monthly fees, versus we just share it. So whatever the proportion of our streetlights, our crosswalk, is what the county pays. So one is more money up front, but less every year. And one is less money up front, but more every year. And I'd like to know what those numbers are before we decide which way to go on it.
Very good.
Yeah, I guess, Jim, if I could give you a little bit more direct answer. Being that fixture we should hopefully hear about in June, I would be willing to wait to see what happens with that fixture. That would answer a lot of my questions as far as which way I'd like to see this go.
That's fine. That's fine. I would also, in the conversation as well, just to give you a sense of what the county's wrestling with in terms of trying to find the financing necessary, the South Bridge, which originally I think came in under 50 million, is now up to $80 million and rising. So there's a lot of competition for dollars out there, and that South Bridge now has a new estimate of $80 million, so which is almost equivalent to what was spent on Estero Boulevard. So a lot of challenges all around.
So we're like a rounding error for them then.
Exactly.
I don't know about that.
Okay, Councilman Veach, you're next. Councilman items.
Okay, a couple of constituents, and this is a question for Roger, have brought up the chains that were on the beach and lights that were on, that someone made a movie. Do we know anything about that?
We were approached with a request for a special event permit, which was not, did not make through staff vetting for and there was no details. It was really more that they wanted to use the beach and they wanted to use some of our parking areas. But no. So apparently, what I'm hearing from folks like yourself, Counselor, is that apparently they would just went ahead and did it on their own without a permit. And we're just trying to track down that to see if there's anything further we can do about it. But no, they did not have staff or town approval to do it. They just did it.
Okay, the other thing is, we mentioned Charlie's Boathouse, and I just want to, again, say what a great job they did. The cooperation, we're talking about the Pink Shell, we're talking about Charlie's Boathouse. There's definitely some really good corporate citizens on the island, and I just appreciate everything they do for us to make things that could be difficult easy. And thank the council and the staff for accommodating me. I don't particularly feel bad. I would even wager that Steve Johnson feels worse than I do, but what he's got is maybe not as contagious.
Actually, you look better here, Bill, than you do when you're in here, actually.
Good color filter.
Okay. How about color in your cheeks? Vice Mayor.
I would like to ask Roger if he could check with Letran and find out for a future report to us the status of putting benches and further functional items at our bus stops. There are parts of the boulevard that have now been completed for quite a long time. There's a beautiful pad in front of the Beach Theater for people to stand, but there's not a bench or a shelter. So I'd just like to know if that's on their agenda and when we might expect those things to be installed.
Madam Vice Mayor, I will definitely check for more information, but the last information I have is that we work collaboratively with them for them to get a state grant. So they're in that same sort of budget cycle that we're in, where the state budget goes into effect July 1st, and then it takes 60, 75 days so those agreements are executed, and they can't spend any money or do anything until they are executed, because anything they do would not be grant eligible. So, but I will verify that and report back to council, but that's my understanding.
Thank you.
Councilman Allers.
Just a couple of things. Going back to the Pink Shell, thank you again, Mr. Wachulis, for having me out to take a look at that. We had some good discussions about some things, and one thing that did catch my eye that they've done out on the beach that seems to look like a very good solution when it comes to garbage cans. I don't know if staff has seen it, but they've got a garbage can that's elevated by a very small pole. So it's high enough that the sea turtles can crawl underneath it. They don't have to worry about hitting it or bumping into it. But it's also in a location that if someone is on the beach, they don't have to walk all the way back to the beach access to be able to put trash in. I've noticed over the years, and my wife and I, and I'm sure my fellow counselors have all been involved in walking the beach and cleaning up the beach after spring breakers or people that are just out there having a good time. They seem to leave a lot of stuff right where they sit. But those garbage cans really caught my eye because it seemed like it was, well, one, they maintain it, they're very clean about it. And it seemed that people that are sitting on the beach, if they have something much closer to deposit their garbage in as opposed to having to go back, it's something I think it would be interesting to look at to see if that's something the town could do. I don't know, DEP-wise, what we'd have to do to go through that. But I encourage anyone that hasn't seen them to go down and take a look at them. It seems like the people that I've talked to going down there that are just sitting on the beach are more inclined to throw their garbage away if they're not having to go an extra 150 yards each direction or whatever to throw stuff away. The only other thing that I have is just easier. The people that have reached out to me about the Linnell Road crosswalk, just give you a blanket update. I did meet with Chief Martin about the issues that they've seen down there. He's going to draft a letter that will come back to the town where we can piggyback on and send it up the chain of command, I guess, if you will, to the county to see what we could potentially do for that crosswalk. As we all know, it's a crosswalk that gets brought up a lot. We do have a fire station down there that does not have a beacon to stop traffic should they need to get out. So working with them, hopefully working with staff, our staff, we can let it be known that we'd like to see something done there. That's all. Yep.
Thank you. Well, it's a shame that we have to go to the county to ask them how to get that done. You know, if that was our crosswalk, we could just do it. But anyhow, just one other item. I too would like to thank Bill down at Pink Shell for having us down there. That was very enlightening, and but never one to miss an opportunity. He also pointed out, which I'm sure he did with you all, a couple of other projects that they may have in mind coming up. And one in particular was very interesting to me was they have some employee housing there on the property, on the perimeter of the property that is old. You know, it's one of the older cottages, a couple of the older cottages, and he mentioned that they would be considering coming in for improving those buildings or putting up new buildings or something along those lines. And I encouraged him to do that. I said, now is the time to strike. That conversation is going on at this moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come forward with some proposal about that. Other than that, Bill, you're chomping at the bit.
I'm going to comment on what you're saying. I had the same conversation. I'm sure maybe we all did, including maybe even a parking option up there. But that I would encourage us to direct, staff, Sarah and Eddie, to work on specific workforce housing zoning areas, so that any project that is strictly workforce housing, we set the zoning, we set the densities and parking and all those kind of requirements, because there's certainly, I mean, it's preferable for private industry to build this stuff than it is for us. But I think it will, the more the better.
Exactly. Well, I found it very timely that they were talking about it, and hopefully something will come of that, and that'll be number one in a very long process. But hopefully it's going to take time, but you have to start somewhere. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Yes, sir.
Just to help facilitate things, if we're going to pursue a joint meeting with the town council and county commission, if we could begin the process to solicit the subjects that individual council members would like to be concluded on the agenda, so that we could then vet those at perhaps your June M&P or something like that, so that when we tell the counties, that they're going to want to know what we want to discuss, we would want to know what they want to discuss in advance, so we all could be prepared. So to the extent you want to begin to collect your ideas and share them with the clerk or myself, that would be helpful. And we'll put together a list, and then we can go over it with you at a public meeting, synthesize the list down, and then forward it to the county.
That sounds great. You know, I don't want to make it burdensome, like a huge agenda. Hopefully, we can boil it down to a few items that we can talk about.
We can start with these things first, and maybe an item or two if we have time or don't have time, or lesser priority, however you want to categorize it.
Great. And, and my goal is not to make this an adversarial meeting. That's not my intention at all, in case anybody feels that way. It's really to sit down and have these discussions, and hopefully the fact that we're all in the same room, we can, feel a little more at ease talking about these items. And it has worked in the past, and hopefully it will again. So, is there anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Any objection? We're adjourned at 11:39. It's good tea time.